Parshat VaYigash, along with the Haftara from Yechezkel, what does reconciliation look like? That's the discussion that I've chosen to share. After so much drama and various machinations, some might say shenanigans, but that might seem a little bit too irreverent, Yoseph will come clean and will close the separation between his brothers and himself in this Parsha. This is clearly a climactic moment, as it is the closest we will come to unity in the entire book of Bereshit and in its generational families. We read here, "Now Yoseph could not bear all those standing beside him, and he called out, 'Everybody leave! Everybody leave!' No one stood with him when Yoseph made himself known to his brothers." I'd like to point out that in chapter 45, verse 1, when it says, "could not bear all of those standing there," it says, "V'lo yachal Yosef lihitapek l'chol hanitzavim alav." Vayikra, and he says, "Hotziu kol ish me'alai," take everybody away, "V'lo amad ish ito." So here we have both words, nitzavim and amad, being used. In other words, nitzavim is the more formal word, as we have spoken about and comes up time and time again in our Parsha discussions, whereas amad is, "I'm standing with you." So the Tanchum of VaYigash says that Yosef could not stand that the Egyptians were there and hear his brothers being embarrassed when he would make himself known to them. He shows a certain acumen here and a certain emotional intelligence that was not necessarily as apparent in the earlier chapters when he shared the dreams that got him into the trouble that he was in, but then that's where he was supposed to be, as we spoke about last week. And we understand that while these may seem mistakes or missteps in our human minds, it could be a part of God's plan. Note the use of the more formal term, nitzavim, that would be very appropriate given the conventions of court appearances. Yoseph, the second in command of the kingdom, when we move from nitzavim to amad, will now be Yoseph the brother amongst his own. I would suggest that he is compartmentalizing these experiences, which is also understandable. Yoseph, the second in command of Pharaoh, Yoseph, the brother amongst his family. Vayitenet kolo bibichi, and he wept out loud so that the Egyptians heard and the house of Pharaoh heard. But wait a minute, we just said that he compartmentalized. So why would this person who takes away the formality of the situation then just kind of lose it and weep so loudly? Everyone heard. So Rashi says this does not mean that they actually heard him, but that there was clarity that something was going on. Yosef then says to his brothers, "Here I am. Ani Yosef, haod avichai." First question, is my father still alive? But his brothers could not answer because they're startled. Imagine the scene for a moment, the drama here. Were they startled? And again, Rashi says, mipnei habusha. Why? Rashi's invested here, I believe, in showing that the brothers have to come to terms with what they did wrong. I would suggest, going a bit further, that everybody has to address the part they had in this rift, the fact that it worked out for the better for all kinds of reasons, again, as we said in previous weeks, and that now that we acknowledge all of these different factors, we can now have some type of reconciliation. At the moment, in terms of the brothers, however, they acknowledge what they did to their family member, to their brother, and now they may have fear regarding his exalted position. He's in a position to really hurt them. Then Yosef says to his brothers, please come closer. Geshuna elai. And they draw closer. And he says, Ani Yosef achichem asher machartem et Mitzrayma. I am Yoseph, your brother, whom you sold to Mitzrayim. He calls them tenderly and pleadingly and shows them that he is one of them, according to the Bereshit Rabbah. Don't be sad, he goes on. V'ata al ta'atzvu, v'al yichar be'enechem, ki machartem oti, hina ki lemachya shelachani elokim lefanechem. Don't be sad. Don't let it trouble you that you sold me, because this was God's doing. God sent me here to preserve life so that I could be here. Just as we have spoken about faith, I think here we're looking at hashkafa prati, Yosef's personal understanding of his own life and his own faith in God. In times of great conflict, in times of great disagreement, which we're all living in right now, I think it's really important to remember who we are, what we stand for. And to try not just to be the aspirational best we can, but to try to bring our aspirations together with the reality of what we can do given the situation. Yosef is showing a level of understanding here that may transcend that of his brothers, as their realities at this point in time are so very different. He needs to, in a sense, fill them in. They sold him. They don't know what happened to him. They came back. The pit was empty. All this famine. And here's his brother, their brother. He then goes on. The famine has happened. This has already been going on. It will go on for another 5 years. But God sent me here. Vayishlacheni Elokim lifnechem lasum lachem she'arit be'aretz v'lachyot lachem l'pleitak loda. God sent me here before you to give you part of what is in the land, what remnants we have, and also to prepare you, to preserve you, for this great redemption, this great deliverance. Note the difference between the voice of Yosef now and the last time the brothers saw him, namely regarding his dreams. What a different person. We often talk about the 40 years in the Midbar, and there was a much more direct route. We're sometimes frustrated that things aren't moving more quickly. Why do we go these circuitous ways? Even now, thinking about what's going on in our lives. And maybe the point here is that we need these experiences to grow into who we are. That's hashkafa prati. Maybe Yosef needed these experiences to grow into the leader he needed to become, while maturing into the human being he had to be. Now, let us turn to our Haftara. Yechezkel, chapter 37, verses 15 through 28. The book of Yechezkel was written during Yechezkel's captivity in Babylon. He prophesied from about 592 to 570 BCE, and would speak aspirationally about the time of unity and coming back together, joining the people in exile, their land and their temple, coming back and to be as one from these disparate parts. Yosef, his brothers, his father, Benjamin, they are disparate parts, and eventually here they will come together. Here in Babylon, in exile, disparate parts will come together. Notice the object lesson here that is being used to instill a sense of confidence in the future, while reaching back into the past for a template to help the Bnei Yisrael look at this moment in history, both cataclysmic and, as we have seen in retrospective terms, maybe it could be identified as a rega katan, as a small moment, though it certainly doesn't feel that way. So we read, starting with verse 15. The word of God comes to Yechezkel and says, Vatem ben Adam kach lecha etz echad. Take one stick and write on it for Yehuda livnei Yisrael chaveirav, and the children of Israel his companions. Take another stick, the etz echad, and write Yoseph etz Ephraim v'chol bet Yisrael, the stick of Ephraim and of all of the house of Israel, Chaverav, his companions, and bring them close, one stick to the other, and they shall be as one in your hand. So we're bringing these two sticks together. And when the children of the people of Israel say to you, will you not tell us what this means to you? You shall say to them, this is what God is saying. Vayidaber Hashem. I will take the stick of Yoseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim and the tribes of Israel, his companions, and I will place with him the stick of Yehuda. Ve'asitem le'etz echad v'hayu echad b'yado. And they will be as one stick in my hand. And the sticks upon which you shall write will be in your hand before their eyes. And say to them, so says God, in this way I will take the children of Israel from amongst all the nations where they have gone, and I will gather them, from all the places where they are, otam el admatam, and I will bring them to their one land, coming back together, reconciling, bringing your different experiences, your different perspectives, your different thoughts of wrongdoing, all of that, and you come back together. Verse 22. V'asiti otam lagoy echad. I will make it as one nation, be'eretz, b'harei Yisrael, upon the mountains of Israel, melech echad yihiled kulam. And there will be one king to all of them. V'lo yiyu od l'shnei goyim, v'lo yichatzu od l'shtei mamlachot od. And you will not be two nations. You will not be divided into two kingdoms any longer. Now, perspective. This is after the years of being two kingdoms, Rehoboam one, Jeroboam the other, the northern, the southern, the tribes being split and all that. Again, we have this split. And what this vision is to Yechezkel in Gona, in exile, is that these kingdoms will come together as one. And as one, they will be strong. They will follow God. They will have one king. They will no longer defile themselves with their idols and their detestable things as they have done. I will purify them, and they will be to me as a people, and I will be to them as God. And my servant David will be king over them, and one shepherd will be for all of them. And they will walk in my ordinances and observe my statutes and perform them. So we have this playing with time here, because we know that after David comes Shlomo, and then the kingdom does split. So the question is, why are we mixing these periods of time while they are in exile? And we're looking at these divisions that just will come all the time. That's the nature of who we are as people. But again, the goal is not to live in that dissension. The goal is not for the brothers and Yosef not to be reunited, not to come to some detente at least, but the goal is to somehow figure out how to do this as one designated people. Vayashvu al haaretz, they should dwell in the land which I have given to my servant to Yaakov, where your forefathers lived, and they will dwell in it. And David avdi nasi lahem ba'olam, and David will be the eternal king. And of course, again, we know historically how that's going to happen, what's going to happen there. I will then form a covenant of peace. Yukati lahem brit shalom brit olam yiyautam, an everlasting covenant for them, and I will establish them, I will multiply them. V'natati et mikdashi b'tochei olam, and I will put my mikdash, my holy temple, in their midst forever, and my dwelling place will be over them. I will be to them a God. V'yiti lahem lilokim, and they will be my people, and the nations will know. V'yadu hagoyim ki ani Hashem mekadesh et Yisrael. I am the Lord God who has sanctified Israel, when my sanctuary b'yot mikdashi b'tocham olam, when my sanctuary is in their midst forever. Now, for those of us that have been in Israel and know about the yeshiva that's creating all the accoutrements, all of the vessels and everything for the third temple, and people that are always saying, and Mashiach should come, this is this aspiration. This is where we're saying, we know we're fractured, we know we're broken, we know all of this is going on. We are hoping for that time of unity. Once again, we see the hope and joy of reunion, bringing parts that were once together and then separated back as a unit. The evoking of Yoseph and his family conflicts and reunification is a powerful image, as is the object lesson that is brought here by Yechezkel and the two sticks becoming one at a time when, due to the exile and so many external factors, it may be, indeed, most likely is, very difficult for the people of Israel to even imagine such a reconciliation, such a time. Yet, this hope remains, having come to us from the end of Sefer Bereshit, reenacted here in the Babylonian exile, and held on today, despite so many divisive factors which are clearly part of our reality. Back in our Parsha, remember that there is division as well. In fact, the very name of our Parsha, VaYigash, that one grouping or category warily and hesitantly approaches very carefully the other, is exactly how the opening interaction between Yehuda and Yoseph is described and then reenacted in the Haftara. This distance is reflected in the beginning of the drama of our two sticks, one for Yehuda and one for Yoseph. This is further evoked in the very first sentence of our Parsha. VaYigash elav Yehuda, Vayomer bi Adoni yedaber na avdachad davar bi azni Adoni va'al yichar abcha be'avdecha ki kamocha keparo. Remember Yaakov coming to Yoseph and being very acquiescent and all of that. Yehuda approaches Yoseph and says, please, my Lord, let now your servant speak something into my Lord, that's your ears, and do not let your wrath be kindled against your servant. I know that you are like Pharaoh. Yehuda sees the second in command person to Pharaoh as royalty, a different class, far away from him, not possibly a product of his very own father or mother or his family of origin. We continue. My Lord asked his servants, have you a father or a brother? Hayesh lechem et av o ach? And we said, we have an older father and a young child of his old age. And the brother, that was Yoseph, is dead. He is left alone of his mother, and our father loves him. And then you said, bring him down to me so I can see him, his full brother. And we said, the boy cannot leave his father, for if he leaves his father, the father will surely die. And then you said, if your youngest brother does not come, you will not see my face again. And then we told our father your words, and our father said, go back, buy us a little food. And we said, we can only go if our younger brother is with me. And then their father says, you know that my wife Rachel bore me 2 children, and one went away from me. Ach tarof velo ra'iti ad hena. He has surely been torn to pieces, and I have not seen him since. Now if you take this one away from me too, and misfortune befalls him, you will bring down my head to misery in the grave. The brothers are confronted with a dilemma in terms of this fractured family. How does this get resolved? How does unity happen? Remember the perils of travel and the reality of the time. You can't exactly hop a bus or a plane or a train. Not so simple. While Yosef may understand that he was brought to this place by God, he is still not facilitating this reunification as it needs to be as we begin our Torah portion. What will change this? We continue in the brothers' narrative. It will come to pass that when he sees that the boy is gone, he will die. Your servant assumed responsibility for the boy from my father, saying, if I do not bring him to you, I will have sinned against my father forever. So now please, let me stay. Let your servant stay instead of the boy. I will be a slave to my Lord. And may the boy go with his brothers. For now, how can I go up to my father if the boy is not with me? Let me not see the misery that will befall my father. It is only when this drama is laid out for him that Yosef truly understands that not only has he been in pain, but his father and his whole family has been in pain. This division has not only fractured the family, but led to very different life experiences through which they have each carried the pain. This reunion will be facilitated by the brother who sensitively lays out the problem, tells his story, and evokes the feeling of loyalty to the one shared parent that makes this a family, that makes these men brothers. As Aviva Zornberg teaches, many commentators have noted that Yehuda effectively brings no new data in his long speech. What justifies his long recounting of the narrative is what Ramban calls the plea for grace, the attempt to arouse compassion by words describing suffering. The brothers, their father, Yehuda himself, they are all victims of fate, circumstance, the imperatives of survival, the need for food, Yosef's stern questionings, Yehuda's pledge to his father to bring Binyamin back alive, have all conspired to place the family in an impossible situation. What Yehuda is doing in his speech, while not giving any new information, he is asking that Yosef, and this is a quote from Aviva, tinkers with the scales of justice, so that the intimate equilibrium of the family may not be totally disrupted. The purely emotional nature of Yehuda's speech, with its, in judicial terms, outrageous plea, leads directly to Yosef's unmasking, to his revealing himself to his brothers. The rift that appears to be here, he says, is not here. I am Yosef. I am your brother. I'm very wrapped up, as you know, these days, with multi-faith dialogue. I'm very aware that many of our groups have come to a screeching halt. I'm very aware of the pain in the Jewish community, what's going on our campuses, people that are reverting way to the right or way to the left, and those of us that are in the middle, not in terms of questioning, but in terms of positioning, are really feeling lonely. We're all in pain. We are all in pain. One of the things that we have to remember is acknowledging the pain of the other does not take away from your pain. In fact, if we're not going to go to the point of two opposite positions, but try to maintain the humanity that perhaps we can find, b'derech namtza'i, in the middle road, then acknowledging that the other is in pain is empathy. And empathy comes when you too are feeling that something is amiss. Maybe this is what Yosef comes to understand. Maybe he comes to understand not only that he's where he is because of God's plan for him, but something greater. Yes, he's saving his family. Yes, he will preserve the possibility of a future. But he will also tap into that pain that he feels so that he can better understand the pain of the rest of his family. And this, according to Aviva Zornberg, is what turns his head. It is this understanding, this empathy, that hopefully will lead us to unity that we aspire to achieve in our own relationships, in our world, and in the very fractured lines of division that so mar that world, as well as our community. Hurts will remain. Injustices will not necessarily be completely rectified. But nonetheless, we have to try to do the best we possibly can. Let us all work to bring together the elements of our varied experiences and positions together in a way that will serve the best interests of all as much as possible. May the sticks of Yehuda and Joseph come together as one, and may those sticks represent the joining of all B'nai Adam do so as well. I wish us all a Shabbat Shalom. Next week, as I said previously, I will be recording on Wednesday because Thursday we are going to Israel. I will be away for several weeks. I will resume the Parsha talks during the week of Parshat. It will be Shemot, Va'era, and Bo that we will take together. Be well. I wish you all calm and reason and sanity at this very difficult time. And may we all understand that our goal here is to bring us and our different views together in a way that is healing. Shabbat Shalom.